Hi guys, I'm back. So it's been quite a whirlwind last week, and I hope you guys all enjoyed the interview that I did, or our live from the vault. That was a lot of fun, and there'll be a lot more videos coming out about that time that we got to spend in both Florida as well as Panama. But I wanted to start this session going back and reinforcing that technical lesson with gold, spot gold and spot silver, and even bring in something else. So Josh, can we go to the, yeah, there we go. Okay. So remember that the blue line is the 50-day moving average. That bottom red line is that 200-day moving average. And remember when we talked about it, I said that the price was very stretched above. And so it can only go so far above or below before it's coming back to that 200-day moving average. Okay. And what you're witnessing here is when it reached that peak and it was so extremely stretched, it just pulled back and stayed within a narrow range, giving that 200-day moving average a chance to catch up. Can you see that in this chart? Because you'll see the same thing in the silver, in the spot silver chart. Let's see, is it doing, oops, went way too far. Oops, sorry. Okay, and this is the spot silver chart, and you see that same kind of behavior. So remember that 200-day moving average kind of acts like a rudder on a boat. And if the spot price of anything, it doesn't matter whether it's spot gold or silver or the dollar or Bitcoin, which we're going to see in a second, or stocks or anything, when it gets overstretched, you want that $200-day moving average to continue to move up and just let some of that steam out of that price target. So that's what's happening with both spot gold and spot silver. Not an issue at all. Now, I thought that this was really interesting. This happened this morning. Bitcoin traders are still rattled after $340 billion wipeout. And let's take a look at that chart. Okay, this is all the same time frame. And again, you see that red line on the bottom as that 200-day moving average. And you can see how stretched it was. And you also see that 50-day moving average on the blue line. And you can see how the spot price went above and below that blue line for a while, and now it has dipped below that 200-day moving average. So some are saying that this is the reason why Bitcoin doesn't have the momentum to move up further, at least at the moment. So we can keep an eye on this, but the difference between the two or the three of them should be pretty clear, because really what we're looking at is spot gold and spot silver kind of sorta represent gold and silver. Not really, because neither one of them reflect the true fundamental value. And that's true for spot Bitcoin as well, the Bitcoin to the US dollar. The difference is it takes energy to create both of these. This energy is used up here, and the energy is held here and can be used an indefinite or amount of times, because gold is indestructible. We know the true fundamental value of this because it's based on how much of this garbage governments issue and how much of this sound money exists in the entire world. We don't really know what the value of this is yet because it's going through its test. Maybe now, we'll see. But just keep that in mind, and I just wanted to start this with a little technical lesson to reinforce what we were talking about before I left for Florida and Panama. I also thought that this was interesting, and I wanted to bring this up, that we have a cloudy economic outlook Well, look, we already knew that the reportability was not great before all of those job cuts and the government shutdown, which is now in its 42nd day, the longest government shutdown in history. And let's just kind of look at where we're at with that, because the rift among Democrats puts Congress on a path to end the U.S. shutdown. They really didn't get anything that they were asking for. But you and I, well, we've had to deal with the government shutdown, and maybe it hasn't impacted you on a clear level, but there are those that it really has impacted. And I'm telling you, and I cannot reinforce this enough, food becomes the single biggest issue during these transitions. That's why I became an urban farmer. That wasn't really what I wanted to do, but knowing that food is a very big deal, and U.S. again seeks to halt food aid. These are things that have been going on while we're getting more tax breaks for the wealthy. IRS quietly retracts limits on loopholes. The Treasury Department and the IRS, through a series of new notices and proposed regulations, are giving breaks to giant private equity firms, crypto companies, foreign real estate investors, insurance providers, and a variety of multinational corporations. The provision, the corporate alternative minimum tax, was passed by Democrats, and it sought to stop corporations like Microsoft, Amazon, and Johnson & Johnson from being able to report big profits to shareholders, yet low tax liabilities to the federal government. These breaks come in addition to the roughly $4 trillion package of tax cuts that President Trump signed into law in July. Do you see why it is so critically important for you to be as independent, to become your own central bank, but do it inside of a community to provide surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, which really my preference is silver, but in any form. And I want you to also realize that anything that you have that's physical is barterable, as well as your talents. So this could be a good time to learn some skills. Wealth preservation, which for me is primarily gold. But again, you need to maintain your standard of living, and community is going to come in to help you create that surety. Community, arguably the single most important thing that I talk about these days, and shelter. Get it done. All of this back and forth, the government shut down. Okay, now maybe it's going to be open again tomorrow, but that's just to fund the government for a couple more months. And then in January, are we facing another shutdown? And what does that do to global confidence and the globalists? Global governments, global corporations really wanting to buy our debt. That right now, look at it. And this has been true for a while, but never so true as it's been over this past, not even a year yet, right? The foundation of the global monetary system, the 10-year treasury, is going like this. If you're going to build a house, do you want to build it on a fault line like this? Or do you want to have confidence that it's on bedrock? Sound money is bedrock. Sound money is money that the governments and the central bankers cannot inflate away. And gold, particularly redeemable gold in the system, requires fiscal responsibility. So you can't have all of these giveaways in the system, because not if you have redeemable gold in there, because if you and I saw that and we didn't like it, we'd simply pull the gold out of the system and create more restrictions. So you're not going to have a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note that you can't buy anything with. And the dollar is that way too. So let's see what happens tomorrow. But even if the government shutdown ends tomorrow, can it really easily undo and turn back the clock? No. There's an awful lot of damage that's been done over these last 42 days. Even if these people get their back pay, I mean, it is a trickle-down effect. If people weren't getting paid and they couldn't pay their bills, that means you've got more defaults, more late payments. It's a problem that impacts everybody, whether you see it directly or you feel it indirectly. Fortunately, my daughters went to Florida and they're coming back today, and you know, Phoenix is one of the airports that had to close down a lot of the flights. And fortunately, they already texted me. They're on a plane. They don't have any layovers, so they're going to make it home. But I was questioning whether or not that was going to happen. And that's all due to the government shutdown. Plus, they're understaffed anyway. So now I will go ahead and take questions. And I'm not sure because I don't have any names on the first two, so I don't know who sent them in. But I have mining stocks, and I think that they will be safe in a market crash. What do you think? Well, Ava. Well, Ava, I could tell you, I was there on Black Monday in 1987. And no matter how rock solid or safe I thought those stocks were, when you have a major market meltdown, everything melts down as well. I can probably pull up, or if you call us and you ask if you have a strategy specialist or you talk to one, they can send you a chart on what happened in 2008 between the collectible coins as well as the spot gold market and the miners index. It's still a stock. It's not gold. You don't own gold. You own shares in a business, and you don't know how they're run. This is clean. It isn't that I don't like miners, but miners are vulnerable. We can look at what's happening in Africa or elsewhere, really, with additional royalties. There are all different ways that these companies can be confiscated, right? Extra royalties, extra taxes, etc. So, no, I don't personally think that mining stocks are safe inside of a crash at all. I don't think any stock is safe inside of a crash. And you might notice that even the spot gold and spot silver markets, these are paper contracts. They can be sold and bought like that, right? In the physical world, it takes a little bit longer. It's a different market. And I am not sure who sent this in, but has anyone, or is it even possible to approximate what the value of gold and silver should be if it somehow regained back the 96% of value that it has lost? Yes, actually, and I do it all of the time in that, and it's not easy for me to pull this up. But again, if you call us and you ask for it, we can give it to you by looking at what the average wage was in terms of dollars and in terms of gold and in terms of silver back in 1913, 1970, it was when that started, and where it is currently. And so the last time I did it, don't hold me to these numbers, I'll be reasonably close, but not absolutely accurate. It was, if you had not gotten a raise but been paid in the same number of ounces of gold, I think it went from like $800 annually to something like, wasn't that like 800,000? Something like that. So yeah, all you really have to do is look at the average wage in 1913 and divide that by how many ounces of gold that would be. Look at the average wage today. I mean, you'll see the difference, but just take the number of ounces of gold and multiply it by, well, kind of the current spot price, but really the fundamental value will show you the truth of what we've really lost. So yeah, that's easy to do. You can also go on inflationdata.com, and that'll kind of give you an idea of that as well. And Parsley G7832 asks, I often hear you say that if we could only get, I think, 3% of the population to convert to gold and silver, it would be enough. Where do you get this figure? Well, it was 3% that caused the Revolutionary War. 97% of the population certainly didn't participate. I mean, they ended up participating in it, but they weren't what pushed it. And so if you think about it, we've got the 1% that are ruling the 99%. So 3% Revolutionary War, and that's 3 times as many people as that 1% that's dictating right now. And that's why I think that we've got the potential with 3% of the global population participating in this to have a voice in the next monetary system. And if I'm sitting at the table representing us or whoever is, I'm going to be pushing for redeemable gold in the system. I don't care what that percentage is. It doesn't have to be 1-to-1. I don't really care. But I want at least a 40% redeemable gold in the system. And when I say redeemable, that means if you don't like what they're doing, you can go in and say, give me the gold out of these dollars or wherever you happen to be in the world. That would do it. And, thank you for everything, and kisses to Juliet. Is Juliet around? Is she laying here? No. Okay. I will give her kisses later. Thank you so much. And it's my pleasure. I am here to be of service. It's why I was put on this planet. And Wise Fairy Lights asks, thank you, Lynette and team, as we have paid off our house and pulling resources out of the market into holdable gold and silver. Very good. As a rule of thumb, how much fiat cash should we have on hand? It kind of depends on what your circumstances are. If you are currently working, then you wouldn't need as much, and maybe say, and there's a whole cash part of the portfolio that could include a few other things like gold backs or even glint or something like that. But generally speaking, if you're still working and you have that income coming in, probably about 30%. If, however, you're using your intangible assets to generate income and you're in retirement, well, then that's going to be much bigger, maybe even 12 months. But it kind of depends. And that's why all of our strategies, they're built in layers for short, intermediate, and long term. And they're also based upon what your goals are and what your circumstances are and what you have to work with. So it's very nuanced and it's very individualized, but that would be a general rule of thumb, but I suggest that you give us a call and have that conversation so that we can get very specific, because it's also going to tell you how much barterable gold and how much barterable silver you need to sustain your current standard of living over whatever period of time you're comfortable with. I've done it for myself for 10 years. And Deb Warner asks, Lynette, in history, has there ever been a revaluation of gold? Yes, there certainly have. I'm just showing you a few here, but that's actually happened over 4,800 times. Gold never really changes, right? It has the broadest functionality, physical gold. It's this stuff that changes, right? This is what loses value. This maintains its value because it has global, broad-based demand. So yeah, and if you think about it, even at 2% inflation, that is a constant gold revaluation as well as a constant, well, this happens to be Zimbabwe, but you could say the same thing for dollars. I mean, this $20 bill does not buy, let's see, when was this one issued? 1969. So this one was issued prior to us completely going off the gold standard and holding its value. governments at this point could still pull gold out of our deep storage in exchange for these things, even though the individuals could no longer do it. So yes, inflation is a form of revaluation, and that's why this has a face value of $20. That's why if you're going to buy it, you're going to pay a whole lot more than $20 for it. So you could say that that is a gold revaluation. Yeah, that's constant. That's baked into the system, that constant revaluation. That's why they have to keep it suppressed, because a rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency and a looming crisis, and they do not want you to know it. They don't want you to know it. And Theodora asks, when hyperinflation hits, everything will become unaffordable. How can we possibly maintain our silver and gold status without needing to liquidate it to afford to live? I'm so glad you asked that question, Theodora, because that goes back to the way that we build the strategy. That first part of your strategy, which is your barterable part, it's going to have some cash in it. This is what you use first. It could even have some gold backs in there, right? That's what you would use second, or some digital gold that's redeemable, like a Glint. You've got to be able to pull it out, or it doesn't mean anything. And then your barterable positions. So a variety of sizes of gold and a variety of sizes of silver, so that no matter what you have to address, whether it's property taxes or putting a gallon of gas in your car, whatever that may be. So I want you to understand that very first part is intended for you to use it up. But the strategy is built in a righteous circle. So even as you're building, as you're using that first part up, we've got other gold set aside to recoup whatever it is that you are using. So I say it's built in layers, because no, you're going to need this to survive this. That's the point of that first part, that barterable part of the portfolio. So then it's the other parts that we will use to pay off mortgages or any other fixed rate debt, to convert into income producing assets. So it isn't that you just buy this and you hold this forever. While it is true that every single portfolio should always have a foundation of physical gold and silver in it, so you should have a sound money base, depending upon where we are in the trend cycle and what's the next most likely outcome, would determine the level of gold and silver that you physically hold and the kind of gold and silver that you physically hold. So I want you to know this isn't a static position. You're positioning in. Now, while some of it, legacy gold, I mean, I certainly have gold coins that I hope my family never, ever, ever, ever liquidates, because I'd like to think that generationally, that's what I'm doing. I'm building generational. It's called dynastic wealth. It's the kind of wealth that lasts in families at least 300 years, because we all know that if you have real wealth, you will have more choices no matter where you are in the world. You know, unless, I'm not saying regimes cannot take that wealth away from you, but you want to have it. That's why I like the collectible gold, because I've got a much better shot at keeping it versus the monetary gold. That is what typically gets confiscated. So, yeah, I want you to understand, Theodora, that while you're always going to want that foundation, that the strategy is built for you to actually use up some of your gold and silver, and certainly your cash position, and also to convert into those income producing assets or to retire fixed rate debt. We've got it set up so that it's a complete loop. So even when you use that, you're recouping the wealth that you just used up. Whatever it was that you spent, we're getting it back for you at the end of the day. So I hope that answer. If it didn't, and remember too, you guys, my job is to translate this financial noise into understandable language. So if I don't do it, if you don't understand it, you need to understand that that's not your problem or your fault. That's mine. Let me know and I'll try and explain it differently because everybody learns differently. So I have lots of patience for it because I really do want you to understand this. My goal is to give you the ability to make educated choices that puts your best interest first. My goal is not for you to absolutely always agree with everything I say and everything I do. I just want you to understand because you're the one at the end of the day that's going to reap the rewards or suffer the consequences, to the good or the bad, of any of the choices that you make. And as we are being pointed out more and more, all of this financial chaos is happening blind. We can't see what's happening beneath the surface. And it was already pretty scary with the derivatives. That is a very opaque market. So the choices that are being made, those consequences can come fast and furious. That's why it's really important to get this done ASAP and get into community ASAP. And Theodore also asks, slowly dipping away to stay afloat until it's gone. Am I missing something? Well, hopefully you will have enough that you won't dip away all of it, just the barterable part. Then you're going to convert this. So no, not dipping away until it's all gone. We will recoup this and you will be in a better position on the other side of this mess. That's the goal. That's the goal. And to make sure that you are whole. So no, you are not dipping into it until it's all gone. Just that first barterable part of the portfolio, but then we have it designed to recoup that as well. Yeah, this is emergency. I mean, this is what I use for my emergencies. It's just a raw piece of gold, right? So short-term emergencies, if I need fiat money, this is what I'm going through first. Longer term opportunities to pay off that mortgage with dollars that have no value, to buy those income producing assets when they are undervalued, and longer term to leave a legacy for your family. If that's your goal. That's not everybody's goal, but it happens to be mine. That's why I talk about it. Okay, an optimistic beekeeper. Hi, Lynette and team. Please can you suggest the best response to people who say, we only talk up sound money because we have a vested interest in it. Many thanks. Guess what? We all have a vested interest in sound money. Money that cannot be abused and inflated away. So show them the purchasing power chart from the Federal Reserve and point out the zero in terms of value. Because, as you know, I am a trillionaire in Zimbabwe, but I cannot buy anything with it. So, yeah, everybody does have a vested interest in making sure that our money is sound and secure. In fact, I don't have this in front of me, but I even saw in Germany, their finance minister is saying, we have to go back to a sound money system. Now, I don't know. I didn't read the article yet. I just saw it this morning, and I'm pretty sure he's not talking about going back on the gold standard. But it wasn't that long ago when Germany experienced that hyperinflation, and 25 ounces of gold could buy an entire city block, buildings and all. Those are the opportunities that lie ahead of us if we can hold on to our purchasing power and our wealth. And Wolf 728 asks, do you think that we are entering a Kondratieff winter? Yes. Also, how did we end up with fiat currency when our Constitution made gold our legal tender? So, first of all, is there some way for you to put that?
Yeah, I can.
Kondratieff cycle. It is a cycle, it's a hypothesized long-term cycle of economic activity lasting approximately 50 to 60 years, divided into 4 seasons. So spring is expansion, summer is peak, autumn is contraction, and winter is trough. So yes, that means we're somewhere up here. We've already made that turn, and we are going into here, which is a severe contraction and a depression. I think that we are going into a hyperinflationary depression because we have to get rid of this unpayable debt. And all of these things that are happening adds more debt to the pile. It doesn't take any of that debt away. So yes, I do think that that's true. And how did we end up here? See, we think that they've just been trashing the Constitution recently, but no, they absolutely went against the Constitution when they established the Federal Reserve with the Federal Reserve Act back in 1913. How did we do it? People allowed it. How can they get away with it now? We're still allowing it. That's why I'm fighting to get sound money back in the system again. Because it's really interesting. People think there's nothing that they can do. And you're right. If you're one person, there's nothing you can do. The 1% are so much more powerful than you. And they've rigged the system so they have all the money and you don't. But if we can get that 3% together, create a quiet revolution by buying gold and silver, we got a shot at taking our power back and going back to a much more constitutional government. Why wouldn't we do that? So if you lay down and you allow it to happen, that's a choice. Doing nothing is a choice. But I can't do that because I have children and grandchildren. I have you. This is a huge obligation that I've carried. I didn't know it was exactly this my whole life, but I knew my whole life that I was supposed to do something that made a positive difference for a lot of people. Sound money in our system, redeemable sound money in our system, that would help the world, the entire world. So look in the mirror and you ask yourself, if not me, who? And if not now, when? Because if we all come together, we are more powerful than those that are currently in power. They are trying desperately to crash this system and remain in power so that they can continue to abuse you. Is that okay with you? It's not okay with me. That's my battle. Join me. That's all. Citizens for sound money on a global basis, not in one place alone. It must happen everywhere, and we can do it. I definitely believe we can do it. And then Gold Miners Jams asked, do you use Kinesis, Lynette? Well, they sit on the board like I do of the Global Sound Money Movement, and I know that Jacqueline, the president of the company, has been looking at them and talking with them. So I personally do not have any Kinesis or Glint. I don't have either one of them. But that doesn't mean that that will always be the case, because I can definitely see where those pieces fit in that very beginning part of the strategy for liquidity that you need like that. And Bella Delgado asks, just wondering how those guys are manipulating the market, as I can obviously see the manipulation on hold stock clear as soon as U.S. market open. It's all paper contracts. It's not even real paper contracts. It's a push of a button. And the CME, I mean, you can control an awful lot of gold and an awful lot of silver for basically virtually no money. And if you're a central bank, it's even cheaper. So that's easy to do, because in the contracts, you can create as much physical gold, appearing as much gold and silver as you want to. And you might want to ask, why is it over 4,100 an ounce if that's the case? Central banks losing control? Confidence slipping too far gone? Because it's that confidence that's holding this together. And when that confidence finally goes, and it will, especially inflation, rapid inflation, Public confidence is the last vestige of what's holding this whole thing together, and it's being tested. It's again near the all-time lows. I'll talk more about that probably next week. But yeah, just paper contracts, push a button, there you go. And they can use your equity, if it's a bank or anybody that's holding your equity, your intangible assets, they can use your equity for their benefit. It's called leverage. No, when you hold this, they can't do that with this, can they? Nope. You hold it, you own it outright, and gold is the only financial asset, the only one that runs no counterparty risk. That's according to the Bank for International Settlements, not me. And Iron Mom Solo asks, my question is, why do you think the premiums on pre-33 American gold coins have gone down so much? I think she might be looking at that PCGS 3000 chart. I'm seeing multiple companies offering pre-33 coins just slightly above melt, which to me is mind-blowing. They could be more like raw that you're referring to. Do you think the narrative of the coins being less pure is being pushed on? No, because the eagle is the same gold content weight as the double eagle, which is what this is. Let's see. Potential buyers making them shy away from them and making more people get regular gold bullion instead of collectibles, making them at risk for another potential gold confiscation. I definitely think there is a huge risk of gold confiscation, especially since we were hearing about an audit of Fort Knox and then it got dead silent. And every single government, every single central bank has a gold revaluation account, every single one. So let me kind of I'm going to have to look into that. Can you send that over to Jeff? Yeah. And let me address this better next week after I have a conversation with Jeff, who is our finance manager, and he works a lot with the wholesaler, because I don't know that that's so accurate, but they could be using it as a loss leader. I don't know. Let me find out, and I'll get back to you on that. And Richard Wizardry 1 asked, had silver established a new floor or is it consolidating? Well, it's definitely consolidating. Let me go back to the silver chart and let's look. It ran up so much that I'm going to have to let me look at a longer term chart, and I'll do that next week because this is just since the beginning of the year. Because what I wanted to focus on was the consolidation pattern, but that's definitely a consolidation pattern. There very well could be that bottom floor that you're referring to, but I would have to go all the way back to see that. So if you make a little note of that, I'll do a long-term silver chart. And we'll look at where those support levels are. But yeah, this is definitely, can you pull that up one more time, please? This is definitely a consolidation, right? Nothing goes straight up. Nothing goes straight down. You always have to have bouncing along the way. And when things have moved too fast, at some point you need that correction. But as you can see in this chart, that the correction and that consolidation is happening above that blue 50-day moving average line, which is very bullish. So we just have to see this, whether or not we just had a breakout, because it kind of looked like it might have been forming a little bit of a wedge, which is what I was looking for, and then this would be the breakout. And if that's the case, it's probably going to go test that top again. But this is just a consolidation, giving the averages, those moving averages, a chance to catch up. It just went too far too fast. It doesn't mean it's overvalued, because we know that it doesn't reflect the true fundamental value. And when I looked earlier, it was above that 50 again. So, and that was the big breakout. That was the resistance top that for many, 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 many years, it had not been able to go above, but it has now. So it happened, it's done, and I expect a whole lot more upside on both spot gold and spot silver, and ultimately going to its fundamental value. And I have to say, when I use the term that its current fundamental value is $40,000, it doesn't mean that then that's where it stops. Because the more of this stuff that they do, the higher that number goes. And it's just a number. People marry numbers, but what really matters is what you can convert those numbers into. So when it gets to 40,000 or 3 trillion, I don't know what that number is going to be by the time they do that overnight reset, but substantially higher than where it is right now. But understand, that's just based on all the money printing, all the fiat money, the garbage money that they're creating. That doesn't mean anything. Gold never changes, right? I should do this. But this necklace that you see me wear regularly that I bought in like 1987 for $350, and you know what? We'll pull it. We'll weigh it. We'll even do it just as spot for its valuation. Is that really the gold going up? It's the value of the dollar going down. It's still the same necklace. It's still the same thing. So, okay. Valerie BB5HI asks, just wanted to thank you again. It is truly my pleasure. It is truly my pleasure to be of service. You have no idea how happy these Tuesdays make me. That's why I don't like to miss them. I lost everything in 2008. I am now 71. So it was hard because my wages are very minimal. But because of you, bit by bit began stacking 8 years ago. Oh my God, you just gave me chills, Valerie. I am very happy that you did it, and I hope at the same time you're building a strong community around you. But thank you for that. I really appreciate it a lot, and I appreciate being able to be of service. And divinely created for him, what do you suggest I do with storing my silver coins? Okay. So it is your barterable portfolio. So that would be your silver that you need near you. That whole first line of defense, that's what you need, easy to access. Now, I don't know what your circumstances are. I have most of mine really in a vault, in a private vault that I could actually walk to if I had to walk there. But there was a time when I had my condo and I wasn't on YouTube where I created a whole bunch of hidey holes. I don't know what your circumstances are, but if you call us, we can give you a list of where you might, some potential hidey holes in your home. You know your home the best. You don't want to share that information with anyone other than maybe like my daughters. Not their husbands, not their children, but my daughters know where everything is. They have access to everything because you don't want to hide it and then not let those that you'd want to get it if something should happen to you. They need to know where it is. So you want that close so that you can access it, because I'm going to tell you, we're going to wake up one morning and you're going to lose all of your choices. So the time to get it done is now. And your barterable part of the portfolio is what you need near enough that you can access. And that can also be in a diversified way as well. This, I think, is very, very important, quite honestly. The other part of the portfolio to convert into fiat to pay off a mortgage or to convert into an income producing asset, you want it privately held, but not as important that you have instant access to it, because for the rest of that, we're executing a strategy. And I'm presuming that you're working with us. So, but you're barterable, that very first part where you need instant liquidity, that needs to be near you where you can access it easily. And Ablin Vegas asks, how will Social Security and government services be supported in the future if more and more jobs are lost to AI or robots and less people are working, thus less tax income is generated? Yeah, I'm telling you, when we go through these transitions, on average, 80% of the population becomes in abject poverty. This is the importance of community, not just today, but moving forward. And they will tax you to death. Taxes have to go up because this is how the government generates its income. It's not only that. Let me see. Do I have that in here? Because I thought this was really quite interesting. Where is it? New chat bots forged and biased tangle what is fact or fiction. But there was an article that I was reading earlier that was talking about brain rot and how these kids that are coming up and they're completely dependent upon the AI to do their thinking for them. And I can tell you, even when I'm in AI doesn't know everything. It just goes through whatever is in the system and then spits it out. And so there is some huge concerns about people's ability to think critically and to think for themselves. It's a good question, Albert Lim Vegas. Modern money theory, they just print it into oblivion. But we are going into a completely new system, and this would be a system that could force you to do things, right? I don't really like what we're seeing, but that's why you have to have that community around you, and that's why it's so critically important for us to come together. Do you really want Amazon dictating everything to you? And does it really make a difference if it's Amazon or the Federal Reserve? Does it make a difference? I don't think it makes a difference. Stable coins, CBDCs, they're all about control. Take control back. We have to be responsible. We can't just let other people make our choices for us. It's time for us to come together in global community and say no and dictate what we want and dictate how this goes. We can do that. We can't if we don't do anything about it. But if we come together in community, we have a much bigger voice, and that's what we have to do. And Amir Balalam Mohammed asks, what is the role of BIS? It seems no one does listen to BIS regulations or standards. They're on music and play themselves. Well, the role of the BIS, that is the central banker's central bank. And they're supposed to oversee the global central banks. How much power they have, I don't know, but they are the central banker's central bank. You have to become your own central banker, and you can do it just by holding gold and silver. You can be your own central bank. And that community again, food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Get it done. Get it done. Take back and own the responsibility for not just yourselves, but for those around you that don't get it, right? They don't get it. We're asking them to make a paradigm shift. And that means that we're asking people to realize that the lies that they've believed their whole lives are lies, and most people don't want to do it. So, but understand this, at some point in here, they will recognize it. And so let them join the community, because that gives us even more power. There's power in numbers. And because you do understand it, I mean, obviously everybody needs to do what they're comfortable doing. But I can say for me, I feel a great responsibility for those that do not really see what's happening. We have to help everybody. We have to. If it's not you, who's going to do it? And isn't that what you would want them to do for you? Do unto others as you would have them do to you. I would want somebody to help me if I needed help. And governments put tax or confiscation on precious metals. Finally, any developments about CBDC? Oh, I see that. Is there any fear that governments put tax or confiscation on precious metals? Yeah, and they're already doing it. Both of those things in different parts of the world, absolutely. Finally, any developments about CBDCs? Well, again, I'll go back to whether it's a CBDC or a stable coin, quite honestly, they're all about surveilling you and forcing you into a system. Don't comply. Don't comply. I mean, I'm not going to comply, but I'll keep you posted on, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to fight to retain my choices. But I am one person. I can't do it alone. I need everybody that's watching and everybody that you can talk to and get to do that. And I do have something. We kind of got a little postponed because there was a family tragedy, but it won't be postponed very long, where I'm going to give you the tools to talk to people, and they're going to be very, very simple. So I will be announcing that very, very shortly. And Rob on the Road asks, I'm all in on gold and silver. Not quite. Would a little holding of Bitcoin be a good hedge in your opinion? Rob on the Road, you've got to do what you are comfortable doing. Because you have to understand, I'm a public figure and my integrity is everything. So I can't tell you to do something that I'm not doing, nor can I do something and tell you not to do it. I've been watching Bitcoin since the beginning, and I knew since the beginning that it's a Trojan horse being used to get people comfortable and then participating in the new system. And that's why I personally, because I'm a public figure, have made the choice not to participate in it, because I cannot support the lie and the entrapment. I just can't do it. But having said that, I would not fault you if you wanted to do it. I don't think now's a good time. I can show you that chart again on the technical chart on Bitcoin. And can we go back to that? And I'll just show you. You see that red line? And you can pull this up yourself. You can go to stockcharts.com and it's free. And you can put BTC, and it's Bitcoin to the US dollar, in there so you can see it for yourself. But you see how it's dropped well below that 200-day moving average? Understand, because it's not real, right? It has use in one, and demand, I should say, in one place. That's it. One place. Same as this stuff. It has demand in one place. So what you're looking at is the demand on that chart. Is the demand going away? Is it coming back? I mean, we certainly have an administration that is pushing in this direction. And I mean, they're pushing it, but the demand has gone at this juncture. Is it coming back? I don't know. We'll find out. But I would wait until we see what happens, right? You can look at it. You can watch it when it goes across the red line, when it goes across the blue line. Right now, it looks like shortly, maybe within, I don't know, a weekish or something like that. If this doesn't change, we're going to see that 50-day moving average cross below the 200-day moving average. That is very, very bearish or negative. So if you haven't bought Bitcoin, this would not be a good time to do it. You'll be catching a falling knife. Have a little patience, see what it's going to do. See if they can't create further demand. But either way, you'll make sure, since you're all in with gold and silver, to be properly diversified. I would not be buying it now, and I don't personally own any of it because they want me to think that this is digital gold and it's going through the test now. Maybe. We'll see. Okay, and live sanctified for him. Hi, Lynette. Is there long-term value in slabbed silver? Still not clear on the slabbed metals potential growth and how to know which has potential in gold and silver. You know, there is potential in all of it because what you're looking at are coins that were minted many years ago that have and were intended to be in circulation. I mean, you see me, I hold these things all the time. The intention was for these to be in circulation. So for coins to have been created that were intended for circulation but never made it into circulation, those are mostly the ones that get slabbed, mint state. Now, the answer is yes. I don't really own a lot of slabbed silver, but again, as long as you pay way below the current fundamental value, ultimately you can't get burned anyway because they will go to fundamental value. It's one of the few guarantees that I can give you. I can't tell you exactly when that's going to be, but I can 100% tell you, yeah, all assets, all instruments go to their true fundamental value. So as long as you don't pay current fundamental value for it, then yeah, you cannot get burned. Having said that, if I were going to do silver, and I do have a bit of silver, it would be ultra special ones. You know, like I like to give Warner, my grandson, he loves his silver, so I have a few Carson City silver dollars for him that are slabbed. Also, I've seen some amazing rainbow toned silver dollars that are toned in a very special way and also mint state. So if I were doing slabbed silver, they would have to be absolutely very special ones, and I would prefer to be doing that well below the current fundamental value. With gold, there's a larger market for these. But again, unless you're buying legacy gold, that's the gold that is extremely rare that you intend to pass down from generation to generation to generation, don't pay more than fundamental value. And you can still get phenomenal coins that are well below fundamental value. That alone, frankly, eats up any fees, any costs, any losses, anything. That's how we, recoup spending your barterable portfolio, or even the cash that you're going to put into that first part. So you just have to really be able to identify with everything what's the true value. The Federal Reserve very nicely told us and shows us constantly that the fundamental value of this crap is zero. So anything that you can only convert into this, like stocks, and probably most cryptocurrencies, those kinds of things. I mean, I don't know. Can you barter with them? Some have told me, yes, you can. You can convert those into other assets. Okay, if you can convert them into another asset other than the dollar or the euro or the yen or whatever the government money is, because if you can only convert it into that and you have a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note or a $10 trillion US dollar, whatever it is, a trillion times zero is still zero. It's not complicated and it's not rocket science. It's really simple math. And Aneta 3215, I love this one. Oh, thank you. Greetings from Poland. Oh, thank you so much. That is, my mother's side of the family was Polish, but I don't know where. I just remember some stories, but I never knew exactly where. But thank you so much. Maybe I'll make it to Poland one of these days. I'd like to. I'd like to make it everywhere one of these days. And New Disciple G3101, can you speak a bit about U.S. Mint commemorative coins? Isn't by definition the U.S. Mint, aren't those coins not bullion, but in the investment art category, even if it is post-1933? Well, commems have a very small market, And this is the best way to know whether or not they have a potential to be confiscated or are in that different collectible category. Can you hold them inside of an IRA? If you can hold them inside of an IRA, I don't touch them. I don't feel the same way about silver, but in terms of gold, even the commems, even the proof coins, because none of those coins were ever intended to be in circulation. And the premiums on them, again, I go back to if you can hold them inside of an IRA, and I'd have to look at the commems because I haven't really. You want to see if you can hold commemorative coins inside of an IRA. So if you can hold them inside of an IRA, don't touch them. If you can't, then that's entirely up to you. But they have a much smaller market than these do. What's it say? And Josh is looking that up. And he was nice enough to come in because everybody else has the day off. The IRA allows certain precious metals. Let's see. Commemorative coins are generally not eligible. So there you go. Did they say anything different? However, some U.S. commemorative coins issued after 1986 may be eligible if they are explicitly designated by Congress or meet IRS criteria as legal tender bullion coins, such as specific American Eagle coins. So, check and see. If you can hold them in an IRA, don't touch them. If you can't, then, and that's what you want to do, rock and roll hoochie coo. I support your right to do that. And Oak Tree asks, for someone who can park their cash deposit outside of the U.S. in India, is it better to move the deposit from Bank of America to an Indian bank, lagging fiat reset behind dollar and therefore safer? Well, let's see. What did India do? I think that was 2018 or something like that. And they demonetized like 85% of their currency. I don't know. Do you think they'd do that again? Right? I think it's okay to be diversified. And I am certainly exploring that a whole lot more. What year was that? Was that 2016? And in 1946, 1978, 2016. Okay, so no fiat money is safe anywhere in the world. However, if you are going to go to India, it would not be a horrendous idea to have some cash established there and also have some gold established there. I bought some Indian gold because their jewelry is 22 carats when I was in Malaysia. I love it. I've worn it. You'll see it again. But it's not just India. Depends on what your personal bug out strategy is. You guys know for many years, I never thought that I would consider leaving the U.S. I don't know. So I have my bug out plan B. We are a global corporation, so we are looking at different things. And I just got back from Panama. I haven't done anything yet there, so I'm exploring it. I don't think it's a horrible idea to have cash and metals diversified, but you have to be able to access it. So if you're planning on going to India, then it makes sense to get established there so that you don't have to try and do it during a crisis. But do I think their fiat money is safer than the US dollar? No, I do not. I do not think any fiat money is safer than. I think that this is most likely to be a coordinated global demonetization, to be honest with you. So I don't think there's any place to run, but it could make sense to be diversified. And live sanctified for him. Hi, Lynette. If silver goes to 2,000, even a dime would be around $140. Is there anything smaller to have for easy purchasing of smaller items like fruit, or is that how much it would cost anyway? It could very well cost that anyway, right? The fruit isn't going to stay inexpensive, but you can put a tree in, and the sooner you do that, the sooner you're going to get fruit. Food becomes the single biggest issue for people, and you see it's a tool that's used. But anything gold, anything silver is monetary at its base. I would have absolutely zero problem cutting a little tine from this sterling silver fork. Very little problem with that whatsoever. And we're seeing that kind of behavior in some South American countries. I think we've done some videos on that. So, yeah, gold and silver, if it's sterling or if it's marked 925, it is 92.5% pure. So you have a variety of it, right? And it doesn't matter if it's bent or broken or tarnished. None of that matters. So have a variety, and then you can cut what you need. But chances are also pretty good that as the currency continues to devalue, I mean, I can't even buy 3 eggs with this. So it's the prices in terms of fiat. Everything goes up in terms of fiat. Gold and silver maintain your ability. Silver particularly maintains your ability to buy the same food stuff over time, but have it in different forms that you don't mind clipping a little bit off. And Jambobsky asks, hi Lynette, I want to know why governments even use a fiat monetary system when it just causes so many problems down the road. Well, because governments, this is what they stated when they set up the Federal Reserve, and it's true. We like to think that governments care about the public. But governments, and in the Constitution, it was the individual that was the head. And then the states were supposed to support the rights of the individual. And the federal government was supposed to support the states whose right, they were supposed to support the rights of the individual citizen. But governments want to tax and spend and pick winners and losers. You can't do that on a gold standard because then the public knows. And when we had this system, this system where you could walk in with this gold certificate and pull an ounce of gold out of the system, well, this gold created restrictions on how much the government could spend. But if they made it obvious, like through legislation, then you might revolt. You might not like it. You might say no. If, however, they can inflate the value of the money away, then that is, I mean, people accept inflation now. Well, they don't realize inflation is not a monetary phenomenon. It is a fiat money phenomenon. And the more of this they create, the less value it has. Why? Because it doesn't cost anything to create this. If they print a $100 bill, it costs them 9.6 cents to create that $100 bill. You, however, have to work 100 times harder for that $100 bill. So, yeah, why do governments do that when it causes problems down the road? Look at how much advantage they have been able to take from us. Because remember, governments and corporations were in on this deal right from the get-go. Corporations wanted to pay you less. Governments wanted to tax you more. Inflation accomplishes both of those, and you, the public, don't even realize it. Because if they can get it, corporations, if they're, now Walgreens did just cut all hourly wages for their workers. So they're no longer going to be paid if they don't show up for holidays. I think they're like 6 holidays. But that's quite unusual because really, if you're used to getting $10, you aren't going to accept 5. But if you can make that $10 spend like 5 and that extra purchasing power goes to the top, Why do you think we have income and wealth inequality? Because of inflation. Why do you think we have a K-shaped recovery? Because of inflation. So, winners and losers, we are not in a capitalist system. We are in a crony capitalist system. And as we see companies like Amazon make more money than some countries, that makes them a lot more powerful than some countries. So, why did they do that? Because they wanted to benefit and they wanted to take your wealth away from you and get you to volunteer it. And the way that they do that is through inflation. And the problem is, we're at the end. We are at the end of this currency's life cycle. And when one currency dies, another one is born. Your gold and your silver are the bridge to hold your purchasing power intact to get you to the other side. But when you're holding your purchasing power, you're going to be able to sustain a reasonable standard of living, and you're going to have the ability to take advantage of all of that debt, which makes things look great on the way up. But boy, oh boy, it sure does eat up wealth on the way down. And make no mistake about it, we're at the end. It's just that simple. It's just that simple.
I had a question before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you, something that you mention often that is still a little unclear to me is what is the K-shaped recovery? What is that?
The K-shaped recovery, really that term became very prevalent during 2020, where you just had all these corporations, or you do have, you have all these corporations that were getting all these tax benefits doing really, really well. You look at the earnings of corporations in the Fred, and you'll see that every time we hit a recession, their earnings went up because they're the ones that are chosen to succeed. In the meantime, since wages do not keep pace with the inflation, that the average workers, their standard of living declined. So that's that K shape. Corporations doing much better, public doing much worse. Did that make it kind of clear?
So it's a comparison between the two. It's not like one line of something making it dramatic. It's that these two are like passing each other.
Well, they've passed each other a long time. I mean, it used to be, and maybe if you guys want me to do, I can certainly put together slides and show you all of this. But between, or I should say up until really 1971, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, and then it really kicked into gear in the early 80s, up until that point, the average worker, as we became more productive as a country, their wages and everything, they also were making more money. Once we went to a pure fiat system that was based upon debt, all right, that's when that started to change. And so the corporations and the 1% took full advantage of that productivity, but the wages of the workers definitely did not. So it's just that by 2020, that became extreme and very, very obvious, right? They try and keep it not obvious so you don't realize what's happening. Did that make it a little bit more clear?
Oh, totally. It just is infuriating. Like the whole situation, like we're just being robbed, and like the politicians and the corporations are in bed with each other. Meanwhile, the rest of us are just twisting in the wind.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, were you shocked if you guys haven't seen that Bar series, especially the very first one, were you shocked when I showed you how it was corporate debt that became Federal Reserve notes, corporate flipping debt? You're working for corporate flipping debt. Well, what's the Federal Reserve? It's not federal. They don't hold reserves. It's a private corporation. How many times can you be lied to and you do not know the truth? I can't even tell you how much, pardon me, this pisses me off. It really does. I don't like bullies. I don't like bullies. Even when I was an itty bitty, I would stand up to bullies. Yeah. Can I tell you how many times my mom kicked me in the shins underneath the table because I would stand up to I shouldn't say that. When I would stand up to somebody and she'd be like, and I'd go, ow, stop kicking me. That hurts. But I didn't stop standing up to bullies, and I never will. I never, ever will. And that's what they are. That's what governments and corporations are. They're bullies. Nope. Okie doke. Okay. And Ren Pixie asks, for travel jewelry, which is better, silver or gold? Which carats? Well, both. Okay, either one or both, and you can do it with sterling silver chains, etc. I did happen to wear my travel bracelet, which this is white gold, and then there are I think 10th ounces on here, but any kind of gold chains, any kind of gold and silver, you want a combination of the two, and so nice chains are awesome for doing that, because it depends on how much money you need, to be perfectly honest with you, right? If you only need a little bit, then you probably want to liquidate your silver wherever you are. If you need more than that, then you better have some gold to do that as well, but both. And we've got some things that we're working on that. And which carats? Well, any carats. A lot of the jewelry in the U.S. is 14 carats, which is 58% pure, or 18 carats, which is 75% pure. That's why I bought some Indian jewelry at 22 carats, which is really, really pure, but it's very, very soft. It's very soft. So, any carat will work. You're just going to be paid based upon whatever that carat weight is. There's value. I don't know what the percentage is. I'd have to look that up. In 10 carat, like class rings, okay? Because gold is indestructible. So they can melt it down and they can pull the gold out of that. And Rob on the road, I hold physical metal. I only have a couple of grand in Glint spendable gold that holds its value. Fiat in the bank needed for direct debits and cash, etc., is losing purchasing power every day. Rob on the road, good job. It's a layered approach. We know that this is losing value every day, and we know its value is zero, but it's still what's going to be recognized initially. So that is a very nice mix. And if you're properly diversified, you're recouping this anyway. And Trudrenkin 3248 asks, how important is it to have constitutional silver graded? Most of mine is ungraded. I don't grade the constitutional silver. So yeah, I don't think it's important at all to have it graded. I think you're just fine. And that's 90% silver. Dimes, quarters, half dollars, and dollars. And Ernest DeBella asks, if we lose petrodollar status and suffer the fallout from that, will the entire world necessarily go into an economic collapse, or would the nation that becomes the currency for petro trades become king? I don't know that any country is necessarily going to be able to become king. And we've already although we still hold the title of world reserve currency, that really started shifting when they brought in the euro, right? Because that was created to take over as the world reserve currency, which obviously did not happen. But it's going to be the country that holds its purchasing power. And that's why you see a lot of the countries in the East buying gold. So like China, Russia, India, the BRICS nations, right? They're buying gold because whoever holds the gold is actually going to hold the purchasing power as the rest of the currencies are being hyperinflated away. And then they will be the ones that will be the financial powerhouses. That's why I encourage you guys to do that really strongly, because you need to hold your purchasing power so that you hold your freedom. If you don't hold your freedom, if you don't hold your purchasing power, and everything is in the system and they tell you to jump, you're going to have to jump because you're going to have to feed your family. So I don't think that it's so much about the petrodollar because Saudi Arabia, they're trying to diversify their power and their strength as well. And plus, there's only so much oil in the ground above the ground. So the oil itself is a physical asset and it's a diminishing asset. It gets used up. Same thing with silver, it gets used up. So I think it's going to be more, and I do think that it's the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and I could be wrong about this. This is just my opinion because every member, is Treasury Secretary and central bank chief of almost every single country in the world. And their currency is made up of a basket of currencies. So they're not the ones that have to take on the debt. It's the individual countries that take on the debt. And there's no limitations to how many currencies they can put in their currency. The SDR stands for special drawing rights. It's just a name. And they've been working diligently on a universal currency. So a big universal umbrella, and then it can easily translate into whatever that local currency is. But we'll be in a full surveillance system. And if they have their way, everything will be digitized, and before you know it, we'll be encouraged to spend all of our equity, and a little smart contract will let us know that you own nothing. You have to rent everything. WEF says that'll be by 2030. Could be. They're working on it. We can say no, and we need to say no. ASAP, we need to say no. And Anna 2462 D8I, can you talk about the 50-year mortgage? Okay, so this is a mortgage that has been floated. I haven't looked into the details of it yet, but it's about making real estate continue to be inflated. So a 50-year mortgage would certainly make that, and I'll change my mind once I look into it because I just saw that this morning. Remember, I've been gone, and I know that this is being floated, and there are certainly places that have very long-term mortgages. So I'm going to retain the right to talk further about this, but real estate is a significant market in global GDP, not just in the U.S., but certainly in China and around the world. But in the U.S., it's about 30% of our GDP, which is all the money that flows through the system. And with housing being so unaffordable, how can they make it affordable again? Well, if you've got a 50-year mortgage, that means your mortgage payment will be lower. You're going to pay a whole lot more interest over that time, but it will be a whole lot lower, therefore enabling people that right now cannot qualify or buy a house the ability to do so. But I will be looking at that a lot more because I just actually ran across it and I went, oh, okay, that's interesting. And quite honestly, when I travel like I just did, I'm not going to lie, I give myself an easy reentry. I'm not a spring chicken like I once was, so. But I will be looking at that more, but it makes all the sense in the world to elongate those payments. And they've done it with car loans as well. Now, what do we have? A 7 and 8 year term car loan when we used to have, 2 to 3 years? Makes the more expensive cars more affordable because incomes, salaries do not ever keep up the pace of inflation.
Yes.
Are you going to say something?
It says they go up to 84 months. And I used to work in the loan department for a credit union, and the only time we would ever go over the 5-year loan term was for like RVs, trailers, big things like big toys and things like that, because it was just too much risk to have a loan longer than the 5 years, because anyway, it's like a whole big thing. But like now it's just becoming commonplace And like I talked to yesterday, a friend of mine who helped us get our homes in Utah. I asked him about the 50 years, and he's like, look, it's great for business, because people are going to be motivated to buy homes, but he's like, it's only kicking the can down the road. Like, think about it, 50 years, that's like most people's entire lives. You know what I mean? You're going to be paying on that for the rest of your life. And he's like, it sounds good and it like gets people in the door, but long term, he's like, it is not the answer. And he's in the real estate business, and he even is like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, it doesn't. And to your earlier point, because we just did a video on that, and there's a lot of negative equity in the car loans. So I would imagine this would be true in the mortgages as well. But that negative equity that then gets rolled over into the new car loan. Oh my God. So you're already paying what the average price of a car now is, like $50,000. I mean, I remember, this is a long time ago. This would have been in the 60s. And my father got his very first new car. And it was a turquoise. It was really nice. I wish I had that today. It was turquoise with a white interior, and it was $2,500. And that was a really good car then. So, I mean, okay, they have more bells and whistles today, and I'm not going to say that I don't like all those safety features. There are some features I do not like, but I like all those safety features, but does it really mean that it's worth $50,000 or that the dollar is worth that much less? And so, yeah, the 50-year, why not do a 100-year mortgage? Why not? What the hey? You're renting anyway. What I don't know, and maybe you didn't talk about, but this is what I would look at. Is that a fixed rate for 50 years? Because that might not be horrendous. Or is it a variable rate ever so often?
He had mentioned, we didn't get into the rates, but he mentioned a balloon rate. So you pay what it would be for 50 years, but at the 30-year mark, like if you haven't paid it off, then I forget how it works.
I'm going to look at it.
Yeah, but he says it's gonna hurt a lot of people.
Of course.
So he's not excited about it.
See, and that's interesting because that's even in his industry. And, it would lower the payments a lot, but then you might as well, rent. So I'm going to look at it, and I'll let you know. I could probably do that for next week. That'd be a good one to do for next week. Okay, and Live Sanctified for Him asks, follow up to the travel jewelry question, where can we buy travel jewelry? Well, frankly, you can probably buy travel jewelry at any jewelry store that sells it. We are going to have a division of that because, I wear my jewelry all the time, and I do have a lot of contacts in the industry. So at some point in the near future, you can even buy it from Zang Enterprises. We're not quite there yet, but I've had that question a lot. And so I was actually talking to one of my sources about it yesterday. So, but you can buy it at any jewelry store. You just want to make sure it's at least probably 14 karat and sterling silver or 925 silver. And Rob on the road asks, my bank also charges me 17 pounds a month to borrow my money, have a bank account. Because it's not yours. That's a perception that this stuff is yours. It's not yours. It is debt. In the U.S., it says Federal Reserve note. A note is a debt instrument. You are actually working for corporate debt. That's horrendous. So, yeah, and then they charge you to borrow your money and have a bank account. Yeah, and it's going to get worse, especially once we go digital. What did the central bank say? Once we're fully digital, there will be no limitations on how low they can push interest rates, which means negative rates, which eats your principal. That's what negative rates are. It eats your principal. You're loaning the bank this money and you're taking back less than what you agreed to. And that's what all these fees and charges are, because they get to use whatever you've deposited in that bank for their benefit and do all of these risky things on it. And as we all saw in 2008, even though what happened was disgusting and evil and vile, it was not illegal. And what did I just talk about today? More tax breaks for the wealthy. Are you getting a tax break? No. Yeah. And let's see. Doug Cui Kendall, 1547, and if I butcher anybody's handle, please forgive me. Who best to ask about safely carrying, shipping precious metals coins out of the country? You could give us a call, because I know that a lot of our strategy specialists have worked with a number of clients in that regard. And so, the other thing is that different parts of the world, a lot of people want to execute this strategy, and I actually think that there's a way that we can help you do it. Because like I said earlier, you got to have your barterable right there, but maybe not the rest of it, maybe some of it. So just give me a minute to kind of think this thing through a little bit more, but we may have a solution for you. But give us a call, because there are a number of strategy specialists that have helped their clients do it. The biggest challenge that we're trying to overcome is when you bring it in. Like, I do travel with coins, and nobody's asked me anything about it. But then again, I haven't tried to bring in a big box like that. I haven't done that. It's just been like a 1 or 2, something like that. So call us. We'll do our best to help you figure that out. And Psalm 91 PV 49 says, Lynette, could you bring us up to date on the current repo crisis? Thanks. Well, yeah, what's been happening? Didn't we just do a video on that? Has that gone out yet?
It's coming out next week with Kenneth.
No, on the repos. That's the car loans. We just recorded that just before we left.
Maybe I'll check the schedule.
Okay, check the schedule, because I know that I just talked about that, and so you're not going to want to miss that one. And maybe it didn't go out yet. Please forgive us. We're a teeny weeny bit discombobulated because Josh went with us as well. Did you have fun, by the way?
I did. It was really exciting to see probably the biggest takeaway for me was how confident the Panamanians were, and people that are opening businesses there. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to Clariston, our driver, and he said that a lot of countries rather, are investing capital into Panama. And so we saw it in Casco Viejo, the old town. There's renovations of old ruins everywhere, and these posh new businesses are coming in, and it's because all these international companies and governments rely upon the success of Panama. And so they're investing capital to ensure that there is political and social and economic stability in the country, so that the world can, in essence, keep spinning. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that was really cool to see. That even in the skeleton of an old town, new life was blossoming.
Yeah,
that was really cool.
Yeah, they seem to be spending quite a bit on infrastructure. And this was something that came up when I was at the Nomad Capitalist as well, that the advanced economies aren't putting a whole lot of money into infrastructure, and they're kind of going down, while the third world countries are spending money on infrastructure. And so they're rising. There is a power shift, absolutely, that's happening really all around the world. But you didn't get to go on that trip because we couldn't take any more pictures than just a little bit.
But they were talking about it too. Even Francis was talking about that.
I got to spend time with Francis Hunt, which was fabulous.
You can kind of get a finger on the pulse of how a country is doing by the state of their airports. Mm-hmm. And if you like the one, and I don't mean to hijack the show, but I'll turn it over. But
no. I think people want to hear this too.
I went to Oakland, California airport, and I was aghast. Like, I felt like I was in some third world country. It was dark, it was dirty. And then conversely, like when we went on a trip a few years ago, we went to Oslo, and that was probably the most beautiful airport I have ever seen in my life. But, you know, Oakland is becoming less and less of a rare condition of airports. Everywhere you go, the airports in the United States are looking more and more run down because they just don't have the means to keep up the appearances anymore.
Yeah.
Which is kind of spooky.
The most gorgeous airports that I've ever been in were in Cambodia, because they were brand new. I mean, they had just opened, and they were spotlessly clean, and they were absolutely stunningly beautiful. They were amazing. So, I mean, we're living through history. Our children's children will read about this period of time, because this is a major shift on a lot of levels. We need to have a voice in this shift. If we do nothing, we will not have a voice in this shift, and it will not be for our benefit, because why would they do that? They have no incentive to do that. Whereas if we come together in global community and demand our rights back and demand sound money in the system, then we're leaving our children's children and our grandchildren a better world than we inherited. I don't want to leave them a worse world. You know, I was lucky to be born in the 50s, where there were still a lot of opportunities, you know, and every parent always, well, I don't know that this is necessarily true, but it's been my personal experience that every parent wants their children to have, you know, a better life, the opportunities, a safe place to live, etc. And now we've got generations that are being born, and it's reversed. That's the way it was with the baby boomers, right? Which I'm a tail end baby boomer, but yeah, it's really, so yeah, there is a big shift that's happening. And you didn't hijack the show. I asked you for your input, so that's okay. So Anna 2462. So we'll let you know shortly, because I know I just did it on the repo market, and it'll be better if you watch the video, because then I've got the charts and the graphs and you can see everything, because it's significant. The repo market is like the underside plumbing of the money markets and the money that flows through the world. And, you know, for however much of this stuff that they printed, it's not enough. It's never enough, because it's a drug. And what do addicts need? They need more and more and more, and it has less and less and less impact. So yeah, the repo markets, make sure you watch that one. And Anna 2462 D8I asks, is it better value profit-wise if fundamental value is reached to use 10,000 to buy 200 ounces of silver versus 2.4 ounces of gold at current spot prices? I think you need to be diversified. I have gold and I have silver. What I always look for is functionality, because I've done enough studies and we've published studies on what happens to both gold and silver during these hyperinflationary events. And while it is true that gold to silver ratio, I do expect that to grow more narrow. And what that means is silver to be going up faster than gold, than on the spot market. At the end of the day, gold is the primary currency metal. Silver is the secondary currency metal. And when they do those revaluations, they do it against gold. Now, both of them go up, but gold typically severely outperforms silver. So rather than doing it, profit wise, because what are you going to do? You're going to be profiting in this junk. Okay. You can't buy anything with this junk. You're not going to convert it into. So I would say, look at it based on functionality. What are my goals? What am I trying to accomplish? Because one of the parts of the strategy is to convert into income producing assets. Well, let's say for a moment that that's commercial real estate. You're going to need a whole lot more of this. It's unwieldy, where you might be able to do that transaction with just a few of these. Much more, much easier to work with. So that's why I go back to function. I don't want to take this to the grocery store. I don't even want to take this little 20th of an ounce of gold to the grocery store. But I'd take a dime, right? I'd take a chopstick if I needed to, clip it. So profitability in terms of this, to me, is not relevant. What am I trying to accomplish? What is the best tool to accomplish that particular job? And Lacey Davis 4770 asks, what is the significance of Trump buying Argentinians' currency? I just did a video on that recently too. Part of it could be because when they're buying the currency, they might be buying it from the country, but they also might be buying it from a bank that's sitting on a lot of that currency. And so some have suggested, maybe this is so, maybe it's not, I don't know, no judgment on this, but some have suggested that this move is about bailing out some of their cronies. And is it really going to do anything to support the currency? Do you know when that one is? Did that come out yet?
I don't know. I'd have to, let me pull up the...
Well, we'll pull up the schedule just so we can tell you, because I just did it. I just did one on that as well.
Which one was it again? Sorry.
The one on the Argentinian currency.
I know Ben just finished that one. It should be slated to go out. Let me see.
And if you're in there, you can see where the repo is too.
So it looks like that one's going to come out on the 14th, Argentina and the Peso.
Okay, so that's just a few days. So definitely watch that. I thought it was a really interesting piece when I was doing it. And the repo?
Yeah, I don't see... I wonder if we're not getting our wires crossed, because the only one that I see related to the repos was with Kenneth, and it was all-encompassing with automotive problems.
No.
No?
Okay. I'll look at it and I'll pull it up.
I'll double-check with Mimi and see, because it might not just be on the calendar yet.
Okay.
So.
It might not be, but we'll if it will be. If it's not now, it will be. We're still a little discombobulated. Okay, and Colleen Allen, 3382, asks, Lynette, if there is a confiscation of gold, do you think pre-1933 USA circulated coins are as safe as slabbed pre-33 gold coins? As safe? Yeah, I do think that they're safe. They can't create these again. They can't go back and create them. And according to the law, any coin minted prior to 1933 is classified as rare and unusual, and I cannot hold these in an IRA. So yes, I do think that they are. I also think that some of the foreign gold coins, the older ones pre-1948, are also safe. And therefore, depending upon what we're trying to accomplish, yeah, I mean, this is what I own for my emergency. If I need cash fast, if I need fiat cash fast, this is what I'm liquidating first. If I'm going to need to pay my property taxes, then I have Swiss francs or British sovereigns or some other French roosters, etc. So yes, I do think that they are safe. Can't hold them in an IRA. They're classified as a collectible.
Okay, so real quick, sorry. So we did the live stream on the Repo. Thanks. Shout out to Dexter Big Bags, found it for us.
Thank you, Dexter Big Bags.
We did it on the live stream, but then the other one we posted, like the breakdown, 18 hours ago. So it went out yesterday. So
okay, there you go.
there we
Awesome.
go. We did it.
Knew,
Great work, team.
I knew I did it. I knew it. Thank you. See, we're all a community here. We help each other. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah. See, I know I did it, but I do so much of this, and it's like, you know, when I finish one, I start on another one, and then, you know, so it's a lot of work. I'm pretty much 7 days a week.
Great work, team. Everybody, yeah. Good work.
Yeah, good work. Thank you very much for that. And Gaslin Enterprise, hey, should we invest more into silver if gold is subject to being confiscated, or would silver also be on the hit list? You know, silver was confiscated in 33, but the difference between the two is that it gets used up in industry, and that's why primary currency metal, secondary currency metal, and you do it however you want to do it, but you also see me wear a lot of jewelry, right? Because that is not as likely to be confiscated. Whatever you can hold in an IRA, although I don't know if you can hold constitutional silver in there, but I'm not as concerned around confiscation because both of these physical metals are used in every single sector of the global economy. So no, I'm going to take you back to functionality. What are you trying to accomplish? And then you just do it with the best to your level of comfort, but you do it with the tool that's going to provide the best tool for the job. Let's see. Cannot be held in an IRA. So if you're more comfortable with that, then the constitutional, I have a lot of junk silver, but I have a lot of silver, period. I can't hold this in an IRA either, but it's 925 pure, 92.5% pure. And is that, oh, no. Okay, so that's Mathrig 8513. Is it true that the U.S. will use only the American Eagles as legal tender? We'll see. We're not done yet. And if you needed to convert it into, so a lot of the states that are doing it, there are also that are legalizing gold and silver, which is a very good thing because we need to put pressure in that way on the federal government. And it's actually even more specific than the Eagles, and it's not consistent yet. So we shall see, but that's the battle to get it legalized state to state and all gold, not just Eagles, or not as specific as some of the states are making it, because it makes it even harder. So we're working on it. And Kim EC9, but at least they're doing something, right? At least we've got forward movement. We can fix it as we go along. And Kim EC9DU asks, once the dollar is gone, how do I use gold and silver to pay bills, go grocery shopping, etc.? So remember, when one fiat currency goes away, another one is born. And 100% of the time, for thousands and thousands of years, you will convert your gold and silver into whatever that local currency is. So you'll have to probably still use the local currency, but you will convert it. In the meantime, when we're in a hyperinflationary event like in Venezuela, then you use your silver or your gold, because things will be priced in both of those as well. So you'll have a choice between the fiat, gold, or silver by weight. The gold and silver will be by weight. So that's how you do it. You'd either convert it into the local currency and or use gold and silver instead of the local currency. And Whoop 728 asks, Is it possible for the government to prohibit the use of physical gold and silver so that we'll be forced to use digital currency? If we let them, but isn't that the point? I'm never going to just roll over and go, okay, you can do anything you want, because I know darn well that the choices that they make will not be in my best interest. That's what this battle is about. We, the public, must take our power back. How do you do that? You come together in global community, because there are more of us than there are of them. And you buy gold and silver, and you demand it back. You do not count on politicians to have your best interest at heart. You become your own central bank, you build your local community, and you participate in the global community, and you demand your rights. Redeemable gold gives the public back their rights and their freedom. How free do you feel? I don't feel very free. And I don't think I can go anywhere and really feel very free. But if we have redeemable gold in it, now you're holding it, you own it outright, it runs no counterparty risk, you've got your freedom back. And remember, there's all different forms. Just makes sense. And Barbara Moore, 6666, given the current global situation and the potential monetary reset, where will be the best place to live? Does any country resonate more than others? Really, that's where the nomad capitalist comes in, and then your own experience. Malaysia was wonderful, but I felt more at home in Cambodia. But Cambodia is really, really far from me in Arizona, and so I went to Panama. Panama was very Americanized, so that actually felt even, more comfortable. The people are wonderful. I think that wherever you live, you should be able to speak that language, but you could get by with English there because there's a lot of people that live there. And what's Nomad Capitalist motto? Go where they want you, right? What countries want that investment, want that labor, but you're going to have to do that on your own. You're going to have to figure out for yourself what feels right. I mean, I'm not getting rid of my bug out location, which is 2 hours from here, but Panama's kind of interesting because I can get there from LA, I can get there from Denver, I can get there from Miami. I could drive if I needed to. I could take a boat if I needed to. Is that the answer? I don't know yet. That was just the first exploration. But I'll tell you something that made me feel even super comfortable was that there's a huge community there of like-minded people. I mean, I got to spend a lot of time with Francis Hunt, and, he usually interviews me a couple times a year. But what did he do? He introduced me to a whole bunch of his friends, and it was great. So I feel like, wow, if I go to Panama, I have all of this community around me already. So, because I know that a lot of times over the years, people have asked me about going to Costa Rica. And I know people that have spent a lot of time in Costa Rica and they feel very comfortable, and there's a lot of expats there. So that's a very individual thing, and it depends on a lot of your comfort level and where you are. But I can tell you that's what the Nomad Capitalist specializes in. And I'm very glad that they've invited me back for their next two, well, I don't know if it's the next two, but for 2 events next year. I'm glad about that because it was an incredible experience for me. I learned so much there and made so many incredible connections. But I think everybody's got to explore where they feel most comfortable. And J. Jones 7776 asks, if the entire financial system is a Ponzi scheme, then what are the scammers buying with the liquidity? They create money from nothing, But what are the real assets that they're buying with it? Well, central banks are buying more gold than they ever have historically. Hard assets, right? They're buying real estate. They're buying hard assets. That's what they're buying. And they're also buying a lot of intangible stuff. So, but they're buying, central banks globally are buying more gold and silver than they ever have historically.
What's the point of that?
What's the point of what?
What's the point of the central banks buying gold? It's
You
know what I mean? Like, is it to they obviously know that the collapse will happen, right? It's like,
who knows more about what they're
perpetuated
doing
by
to their
them.
currencies, right?
But so are they getting gold so that when the system flips, they have gold to cash in so that they can continue the next scheme?
Well, not necessarily to cash in to the next scheme, but to support the next scheme. Because this is what happens 100% of the time, is when the public loses all confidence in the system and they refuse to use the money and they just don't trust those that are in power, the gold is used to bring that confidence back. Even with the fireside chat, which I have, and you can look that, anybody can look that up. But Roosevelt's fireside chat, what did he say? Well, you can trust the system because it's backed by good money, meaning gold that he confiscated from the public. Okay? So the gold is to regain public confidence and have people believe that the new system that they're putting in place is backed by gold. Unless it's redeemable, as we've seen in Zimbabwe, it's just another lie. That's why I talk so much about that redeemability. And so did Warren Buffett's father. He talked a lot about the importance of redeemability. It's got to. I know it sounds crazy, but, you know, when a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over generations, the speaker will seem like the truth will seem, oh, God, I just forgot that. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. The truth will seem outrageous and the speaker a raving lunatic. I am a raving lunatic. Because why does that sound outrageous? We had it that way for many, many years. And then you didn't have booms and busts in the economy. You had ebbs and flows, right? That's way different than booms and busts. So, yeah, they're buying real assets and fake assets too, to keep everything propped up, because people marry those numbers, right? Oh, the cryptocurrencies are going up. Fear of missing out. The stock market's going up. Everything must be okay. Fear of missing out. So they're also creating that money to make things appear to be okay when they're not. It's to hide the lie of what's really happening. It's to hide the fact that this is zero, has no value. And Rob on the road, are you saying Bitcoin has no intrinsic value because it's a nothing digit, just like fiat? Its only value is based on belief? Well, I could very well be saying that, yeah, because I don't see the functionality. I think it's good to be able to put all of those Bitcoins on a little teeny thing and stick it in your pocket and be able to go all around the world. But it's so volatile. Is it really a tool of barter? And where else can it be used? Because when it uses up that energy in that water, it's not stored for further use. So, yeah, until I see otherwise, and I'm looking, I'm looking, what is its use case? And where is it used? Because if it's only used in one place, then you only have demand in one place. And so if that demand goes away, you have nothing. You have nothing. Whereas when you're looking at gold and silver being used in every sector of the global economy and having properties that they have not been able to duplicate in a laboratory, and the fact that gold is indestructible, so the energy and the water and everything that it took to mine this to begin with can be used indefinitely in every single different kind of application. There's a lot of use case and there's a broad base of demand with Bitcoin, just like fiat currencies. It's used in one place. So please, I mean, it's why I like to hear all voices. If you know something that I don't, you need to bring it for the group to hear. I think that's critically important. So I'm open to learning because we all need to know. But as I'm looking at it, I don't see a whole lot of broad-based demand. I really don't. I see it used in one place, and that's it. So if that demand goes away, no, it has no intrinsic value. I don't see it. But I'm open to somebody showing me. And Mathrig8513, hello, Lynette. How do milk spots affect the trading value of AG? Well, they don't really, right? I mean, if it's a coin that's by weight, it doesn't really matter. Now, it's going to have an impact if it's a slabbed coin. Then there are things called sight seen versus sight unseen. And sight seen does not mean, oh, I saw the coin. What it means is that it's suitable for a broader retail market because it's even though it'll have blemishes, it's blemished in a more acceptable way. So they will have the broadest base of buyer versus something like that might only be appropriate for a wholesaler or a specific kind of collector. So it would have a more narrow market. My personal preference is to work with sight-seeing coins that have that broadest base of buyer. But if it's just a raw coin, it doesn't matter because it's just kind of about the weight anyway. And Jared H4774 said, when you say, if it's in an IRA, I don't want it, can you explain more what you mean? Okay. Well, you see, most of the gold that individuals and the public holds is inside of IRAs. Now, should the government choose to do an overt confiscation, the easiest way for them to do that is a big, huge sweep of IRAs. And so the IRS nicely has told us what is classified as monetary gold that would be the easiest to confiscate. And because most people don't understand fundamental value and believe Wall Street, whatever Wall Street's telling them, it would just be so much easier. Let's say spot's at $5,000 when they decide to do an overt confiscation. Okay, well, we're going to do this big sweep of the IRAs, but we're going to pay you $7,000 a coin, even though the current value might be $40,000 or $70,000 or whatever, right? But most people would go, well, okay. First of all, the administrator, whoever's holding your gold, that vault, they're not going to say, oh, no, we're going to protect our clients. They're going to comply with the legal letter of the law. So then what do? They leave you a whole bunch of, digits. They're not even going to give you the paper that says that this is how much you have in there. And it's after that overt confiscation that they do that overnight revaluation. So, and again, if I didn't explain that properly, let Josh know and I'll try and explain it again. But that's why. If I can hold it in an IRA, it is classified as monetary, and that is the kind of gold that is most likely to be confiscated. And Karini Rez 6932, can you explain Glint? Well, Glint is like a MasterCard, a credit card, but it actually has physical gold backing it, and you can use it for day-to-day purchases because it can translate the value of the gold that you're holding there into like any other credit card. But what I like about Glint, and this is true for Kinesis as well, and they work the same pretty much, is that if you want to pull the gold out of their system, you can do that. So that means it's redeemable. But it is a credit card that you can use for daily uses that's actually backed by your own personal gold. Would I do all of it in there? Heck no, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. But I like the fact that it's redeemable. And when I'm looking at the layers of the strategy, that first part is about instant liquidity. And since a lot of people do a lot of purchases online, that card would be easier to use there. Where if you go to a store, it could be easier to use. And there are some different comparisons, but basically that's Glint. And Honor Your Health LC asks, placed my first order with Zang Enterprises this week. Thank you so much for your support. That's really what enables all of the work that we all do, and we're all working really hard on your behalf. So thank you very much, and welcome to the community. And Terry Mack 4769 asks, question, Good Vibes Show. Do I sell pre-1933 or trade for silver? I'm in a small town, no coin shops. Work with us and then it doesn't matter. But the pre-33 coins have a completely different function than silver has. And you need both. You need both gold and you need silver. And again, I go back to what is it that you're trying to accomplish? The barterable part of your portfolio is what's critical for you to have very near you, okay? Because that's your first line of defense. So that's your cash, maybe some gold backs, maybe some Glint or Kinesis, that kind of thing. And then your barterable, so different sizes of smaller pieces of gold and silver. So the pre-33s, that's to execute, the slabbed, I should say. Pre-33s are to execute the rest of the strategy. Pay off a mortgage, convert into income-producing assets, that kind of thing. So you want it private, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it, but a private vault could qualify for that. But you don't necessarily need that super near you. So if you're in a small town, you probably don't want to work too much with smaller coin shops anyway, because they may not really have access to the wholesalers and market prices and quick liquidations. You do whatever you're comfortable with. But again, I'd suggest that you give us a call because we're going to help you figure out what's going to best service your needs. We want to meet you where you are and help you get to where you want to go. And we're going to take into account everything. And they all have access to me. I see them every week and we have conversations. They all have my phone number. They all know where I live. And, if there's a question, they come to me. So if you're working with them, you're working with me. It's the same thing. And Delana Lands 1833 asks, if planning to purchase a house in the next 12 months and have a significant amount saved in cash for the down payment, is it better to put it in an interest-bearing account or gold bullion? Now, personally, I put it into gold bullion, and actually even specifically American Eagles, for that functionality. Having said that, you need to pay attention to the technicals of the market, but technically, I would expect in 12 months for the spot gold market to be a lot higher than it is today, part of that is because there is a structural shift, and just because they slap it down, they do this and the other thing. Once a structural shift occurs, it simply is there, and no amount of manipulation is really going to take that away. So I would probably not do it with all of it, but I would certainly consider doing it with some of it to your level of comfort. And again, give us a call and we'll help you figure out whatever works best for you. And Matthew Weeks, 2454, what do you think about holding silver gold ETFs? I don't like them because you don't own any gold or silver. You have no access to the underlying, and it is a diminishing asset. All you own are shares in a trust. And you don't even really own that because you're holding the paper in a brokerage account, which means you're just the beneficial owner. You're not the legal owner. Who's ever holding it for you is they could also be the beneficial owner. It's just all the big banks that are the legal owners, not you. So I do not like it at all. Now, having said that, if you're looking at a short-term trade, you don't want to do that with physical. You want to do that with futures, or you want to do that with ETFs, so probably futures. No, I don't like ETFs. Silver and gold ETFs. They're just designed to move with the spot market and to make the administrators like JP Morgan, it's just a great way for them to access even more gold, and you're paying for it. No, I don't like them. How do you really feel about it? I don't like them. And Medication 4092 says, hello, Lynette. I want to thank you, Josh, Jennifer, and the crew for all you do for us. You are very welcome. I know we all feel like that. You have changed our lives for the better, especially our descendants. Glad that you made it to Panama. Thank you very much, because it's something that I am really, really proud of, because everybody at Zang Enterprises really wants to make a positive difference in this world. So thank you for recognizing and acknowledging it. And we are really happy to be of service. We really are. And Capri MD1 asked, is the life insurance payout of a death based on the company's investments, or is it a guaranteed? At age 75, is it best to not pay premiums and buy gold? If you read any of the contracts, it's based on the claims paying ability of the company. So it ain't guaranteed. If they can't pay you, they're not going to. If it is a term life insurance, in the past, okay, and again, you have to do what you're comfortable with. In the past, I had term life insurance that would cover any of my mortgage or any of the debts that I had, because I didn't want that to be on my children. But I've since then, I aged out of it, where they wouldn't even give me term life insurance anymore because I'm 71. I don't remember exactly when I aged out of it, but I don't have any of those debts. Yes, I do still have a mortgage because I want to execute the strategy with you guys. So I have a small mortgage, but I have so much gold and silver, but gold, to pay off that mortgage that it's not relevant anymore. So again, it goes back to your goals and your circumstances. If you need that term life insurance to pay off debts, that's not usually that expensive. So we'd have to kind of look at it, but I would say call us and let's take a look and make the comparison and see what makes the most sense for you to do. Because the first thing you should be talking about is what you're trying to accomplish, and then your goals, and then your circumstances. And then we can determine. It's all about educated choices. That's why I can never really give you like a blanket answer, because what might be right for one person might not be right for another person. But let's talk about it. And then ultimately, you've got to do what you're comfortable with, regardless of what anybody says, including me. Regardless of what anybody says, do what you are comfortable with first. And that's why I'm trying to translate this financial noise so that you can put your best interest first. And Jeff Gates 8080 asks, pure truth. I want to thank you for the show. Oh, you're very welcome. I want to thank chat. You are amazing. I'm learning from you all. Yay. Good. Then we are accomplishing our mission. It is our pleasure. And Jared H. 4774, can you give some advice on annuities and what might happen in a collapse? Boy, I would say that if you're sitting with a life insurance policy or an annuity or any insurance policy, what's really been happening in here is that private equity has been going in. I did a video on this. Maybe we can pull that up and give a link on what's happening in the insurance industry, where private equity is going in and buying up these insurance companies. And then they are creating their own garbage products and selling them into your policies, whether it's an annuity or anything else, which those will most likely collapse in a financial crisis. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you find out who really, really owns the company the insurance company that you're doing business with, not the name of that company necessarily, but who owns them. And I wouldn't just accept that you think that they're guaranteed, because the guarantee is only based on the claims paying ability of the company. And with all the debt and leverage that they're putting in these things, I'm afraid that people are going to find out too late that they own absolutely nothing, and that all the money that they put into that annuity, anticipating that it would pay them out the rest of their lives or be safe or has a guarantee, it probably doesn't. You know, I used to do that all the time when I was a strategy specialist, when I was a broker, and people would come to me with an annuity. It's pretty easy to discover that, especially with AI, especially with searches. You can find who really owns them, and I'm going to encourage you to look. And if it's a private equity company, you know, you really want to see what they've put you in. And if it's stuff that they've created from their own garbage, run, don't walk. But this requires a little bit of your due diligence. It does. And if you need our help, we'll help you do it. But it should be easy enough to do these days. And we'll pull up. I did a video on it. I'm thinking it was probably about, I want to say, at least 6 months ago. Might even be longer than that. But I'll pull that up and maybe we can post it on the next one, because I know I did that. Okay. But you can give us a call and they can send you the link too. Otherwise, we'll post the link here next week. And John Dagger, YW8EL. I kind of feel when I read these, I kind of feel like I'm looking at an eye chart. And I didn't change these from my last eye appointment. So if you see me squinting a little bit, that's why. Okay, apart from gold and silver, is property considered a good hedge? It's provably a question it's probably been a question that's asked a million times. In the UK, they're imposing masses of extra taxes. To your point, John, you gotta have shelter. You've got to have a place to create your last stand. But as an inflation hedge, no, it is not. If you're using it as an investment, number one, it is severely overvalued, but also to your point, in the UK, they are imposing masses of extra taxes. That's what governments do because that's how they generate their income. That's why part of the strategy is to have a level of barterable gold to ensure that you can always pay those massive taxes. Because for an absolute fact, during the Depression, even if you had your house paid off, if you could not pay your property taxes, you lost that property. So that's why that's such an important part of the strategy, and you do that with barterable gold. And we've gotten all of these different things broken out. So that's why the strategy specialist can look at your circumstances and your current taxes and at least make a good guesstimate on how much gold you're going to need to always be able to meet those property taxes. But are they a good hedge? No, they're not a good hedge. They make it appear like, part of it is the governments want your houses to look like they're going up in value because then you feel richer. But to be perfectly honest with you, at the same time that the houses are going up in terms of fiat money, the reality is the value of that money is going down. So it's just to create an illusion of growth that actually does not exist. And all of that will be wiped away as we go into hyperinflation. Having said that, you got to have a roof over your head. You've got to have a place to make your last stand. I knew in 2008, I knew the system died. I knew it. There was not one question in my mind. I was living in a little 2-bedroom condo, lock the door, off I go because I was getting ready to retire. And then 2008 happened and that changed all of my plans. And instead, I ended up buying a property in the middle of central Phoenix. Insane? Yeah, maybe. But my daughters are here and I'm not going anywhere without my daughters, and they weren't going to go anywhere with me at that point, or frankly, even at this point. And knowing that the single biggest issue for people is food, and you can see it keeps coming up, all these issues with food, that's when I became an urban farmer. That's when I became a prepper. And that's also when I developed my mantra, because I did it for myself. I stepped back and I said, okay, where do I feel the most vulnerable? Well, I'd been accumulating gold and silver, and I did use American Eagles, frankly, for the down payment on this house. I did do that. But I knew that I wanted to be able to feed my family, not just my children, but I have a number of siblings. So I decided that I had to learn how to do that so I could feed. My initial goal was 20 people. And so, I'm glad I'm all those years down the road and I have others that do this. But I'd step back and I go, okay, now where do I feel the most vulnerable? Well, there was a door in the back of my house, and it's an old house that, boom, somebody could just kick right in. So the second thing, as I was also learning how to figure out how to grow food, was security, etc. We don't have the same luxury of time that I had since I started on this so long ago. That's why local community has become so critically important, because a community brings in a whole bunch of different skill sets and a whole bunch of different assets, right? I don't really want to go and lay irrigation anymore. Do I know how to do it? Yep, I learned how to do it. I would actually like to go weed because that's kind of really cathartic for me, but I don't have time to go out and weed my gardens anymore. So I have been fortunate enough to build enough community around me, but there's always work to be done on a farm. And so when somebody comes and helps us out on the farm, they go home with a lot of food and they've started to create a relationship. That's what you've got to make happen. So apart from gold and silver, food, water, energy, security, barterability, anything physical is barterable. Any talent that you have is barterable. Any of your thoughts that's all barterable. And then community, get it done. Go to your local farmer's market, go to a local community garden, volunteer a day of your labor. You'll learn a skill. You'll create a relationship. You'll start the foundation of your community. I mean, we do a lot to develop community in this neighborhood. And I don't even think that most of my neighbors even really know what I do. They just know that they can come by and pick a pomegranate or herbs or whatever they might need. So, yeah, this is property for speculation or property as a hedge is not a good hedge. You got to have a place to make your last stand, so you got to have that. But you protect it with this. And J. Jones 776 asks, Lynette seems stock market is due for a correction. Bitcoin down and Meta down. How are they keeping these markets up? Is it just debt? Yeah, it's debt and leverage. It's debt and leverage and money printing. No matter what they say, all of that money that they just create at will, it stays in the system and it can move from place to place, but it keeps everything inflated and buoyed up. And the markets are due for correction. Yes, they are severely overvalued and there is a ton of leverage in there, but people have been trained not to go to gold and silver for safety, even though this is the ultimate safe haven asset. And so as the inflation kicks into gear more, I mean, a lot of people will go into the stock market thinking that that will protect them, but it can't, because all you are going to do is convert it into fiat dollars that have no value. So flight to safety is in gold and silver, but you also need all of that. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, both local and global, and shelter. Please get it done. And I think, do we have time for one more, or is that? Okay, well, we have time for one more. And it's _777. Any information on the Bretton Woods news? Not sure what you're talking about, but I'll look and tell you next week. Let me just see if there's something here that I missed while I was away. But, Bretton Woods, just to kind of comment on that, and I'll find out, but just to comment on that, Bretton Woods was when the world came together and created a new monetary system based on the dollar being maintained at 35 of them to an ounce of gold. And then all of the currencies were valued against the dollar. Well, all of that shifted in 71 when we went to free floating, and it's shifting again. So I'm not really sure exactly what you're talking about, and I'll see if you're referring to what the IMF was talking about. We need a new Bretton Woods, which basically is a new monetary system, and yeah, we're transitioning into a new one. But if there's anything else, I'll tell you next week. And with that, it's time for me to go, but I really do want to thank all of you for your kind words, for showing up, because time is the most valuable thing that you have to share. And the fact that you're sharing it with us here means the world to me. And if we are being of good service and helping people around the world, that's everything. Let's help each other. I mean, what do we have if we don't have community? And until next we meet, I know we can make a positive difference in this world for everybody. So you be safe out there, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.